This is Dan Abbott. I'm making this video as an introduction to the AEDD160 class in Southern Maine Community College. Class is CAD Applications. We're going to be using this textbook, AutoCAD Secrets Every User Should Know, because it represents what our department considers best practices in the use of CAD software, period, specifically AutoCAD. This class will deal with 4 of the chapters in that book. Other chapters we'll deal with in more advanced classes. One of those chapters is making AutoCAD meet technical graphics standards. And as part of that review, you're going to have to create a number of template files. I'm going to start this semester doing something a little differently than I've done in the past. I'm going to start by having you do a drawing. Well, you'll set that drawing up, you'll do the drawing, you'll answer some questions, but you'll also then have as a basis for your first template a drawing file that you've created and set up. There are some wildcards that can be used with layers, and they're listed right here in your textbook. The only two you're likely to use are the asterisk and the tilde, and none of these characters should be used as a part of a layer name itself. There is an alternative. If you have to use one for some reason, it's possible to do so by doing a reverse quote in front of it. But I don't know any reason why any of those characters should be used in a layer name. So the architectural and layer name system that recommended by AIA always has these fields that start, and it's a listing of the individual discipline fields. It goes down through, and I show you some examples from the other various fields. I also indicate that I would recommend a different system for residential. So for residential, what I'd say is I'd like to do all of my residential work. I'd like to have all the floors in one file. If they're all in one file, I'm going to separate each of the floors by layer name so that I can manipulate the floors using layer states and using some wildcards and even in scripts and in list routines. So what I do is this. I have all my work for the first floor is on FL1. All the work for the second floor is FL2. All the work for the foundation is FND. The object lines for the foundation I would call FND space dash OBJ. And so what I'm going to do is set up the layers based on this system in AutoCAD. So I am in AutoCAD 2020 right now. I'm going to start a new drawing just to make sure I'm starting it with the ACAD template. Then I'm going to go to Layer Properties, and under Layer Properties I'm going to create an FND-OBJ layer. I'll set that to white. I'll make it continuous, and my default, I'm going to set my default in this case as a thick line to 0.4. AutoCAD's default line weight for lines in general is 0.25 millimeters. I don't really like that. I'd like it a little bit thinner, so I'm going to change the default. To change the default, I have to change a variable. The variable is LW for line weight, default, enter. The default value is 25. I'm going to change mine to 20. Now every default layer is going to have a line weight of 20, and then my thick lines will be 0.4, and that's a distinction that looks really good from my point of view for plotting. I'll go back over here. I go back to layer 0 and start a new layer. This one's going to be FND-HID for hidden. I'll change the color to blue. You can use any color you want. I'll change continuous. I'm not changed, but I'll add hidden to the line types available, and I always use hidden 2 for these things. So I'll go to hidden 2, load it, then set this layer equal to that, and I'll leave it set for the default line weight. There are also some dimensions on here, so I'm going to go and add another one. It's going to be FND-DIM. With the dimensions, I'll change the dimensions to magenta, and I'll leave dimensions also set to the default line weight. That should take care of everything that I need for now. Now I'm also going to change my text style. Text styles should never be named standard or annotative, ever, ever, ever. You can't eliminate those two names, but you can do instead is create your own text style. I also normally want my text to be annotative, so we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to make annotative my current style, and then I'm going to make a new style. I'm going to call this one Roman S. Roman S meets all standards for all disciplines. You also could use, if you wanted to, City Blueprint or Country Blueprint for architectural, or for that matter, you could use Arial. But I'm going to use Roman S, and I'm going to set that as my current layer. Never change the text height. Leave it 0 all the time. So now I have a text height that I can use. I also am going to want to set up a dimension style. And the dimension style for architectural I also recommend specifically in the book. And there are also some handouts. It involves setting up dimension styles so that when you place dimensions, it's as efficient as possible and meets standards for architectural. I'm going to go to my dimension styles. Once again, never use annotative or standard for anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this an annotative style. I'm going to rename it architectural. And now I'm going to create a style, a parent style with three child variations. So I'll modify this, starting with lines. I'm going to go down and change the baseline spacing to 0.5. That's the space I want between each of the dimensions when I place those dimensions. I need a little more room here than I would normally have with mechanical because of the way because of the way architectural dimensioning is done. The extension, I'm going to change to 0.06, approximately a 16th of an inch. The origin I'll leave the same. Symbols and arrows, I'm going to leave it set to a regular arrow. I'll change ticks on linear dimensions. Arrowhead size, I'm going to change to 0.1. I'm going to change 0.06 to a center line, the center marks. I'm going to go to text. I'm going to set it, instead of being standard, I'm going to set my text to Roman S. And by doing that, I'm going to change my text height to 0.1. 0.12 would also be acceptable, but I'm going to use 0.1. We're going to leave it horizontal for now. I'll make a change later on to linear dimensions. Offset 0.04 makes things a little bit closer. I'm going to change either text or arrows to arrows. I'm going to put over dimension line with leader for the text placement, and I'm going to leave it set to annotated. I'm going to go to primary units. I'll change the unit format from decimal to architectural. That would make sense. I'm going to do something that might surprise you, and I've gotten some really strong feedback from this. I'll explain why I'm doing this, but I'm setting my precision not to a 16th, but to 1/256th of an inch. I'm doing that because as you're dimensioning a drawing, you can use the results as a way of determining if you've made any errors. I can set this precision to 1/256, but unless I have made a mistake in my creation of the geometry, I will never see that fraction on the drawing when I dimension. The dimensions will still be whole numbers if I used whole numbers, as long as I'm accurate. As a result, as I'm dimensioning, I can catch mistakes on the fly. I'm not suggesting that you would ever see a fraction that small on an architectural drawing. As far as zero suppression goes, I want to suppress feet, but I don't want to suppress 0 inches. Then I'm going to say, okay, ignore alternate units and tolerances. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to make another new style, but in this case I'm going to not use it for all dimensions, but only for linear dimensions. Now as I modify that, I'm not going to change anything under lines. Under symbols and arrows, though, I'm going to change to an architectural tick mark. Architectural tick marks are just too big if you make them 0.1. I'm going to make mine 0.05, which is a nice small mark, and I'm going to put none for my center marks in case I put center marks in. Well, it's going to be just for linear dimensions, so it won't really matter. My text I'm going to change to align with dimension line so it comes above the line, and I'm going to go over here into vertical and put above. Now that's the format that I want my dimensions to show up in. Under fit, the only change we're going to make is to pick draw dimension between lines. So if there's a small dimension, it'll force a line to go in between. Primary units, I'm not going to change anything there. I was here before, wasn't I? I would suppress 0 feet, but not 0 inches. And now I would pick OK. And now I have a linear child variation. For this drawing, that's enough. I would have another child variation for circles and arcs in situations where I was dimensioning circles and arcs, but this drawing doesn't have any, so we're just going to leave it the way it is. Now we can start drawing. What I am going to do first is do a save as, and I'm going to save this file in some location where I can find it again. In my case, I'm just going to put it in my own folder, and I'll call this foundation drawing. Now I can get started. First thing I want to do is set my limits so that they're large enough when I'm drawing. Oh, first thing I want to do is change my units. I want to change the units from decimal to architectural so that I can type in architectural units for this drawing. And I also want my precision for angles to be set up a little bit larger so that I can get better information. I'm also going to set the precision to 1/256 for getting information out of the drawing. Now I'll go to my limits, 0, 0 in the lower left hand corner. Just to give myself enough room, I'll make the overall limits 50 feet by 40 feet. The only real advantage is when I do a zoom all now, I get all my limits. And what I'm going to recommend is that you either draw this with P lines or you turn that into P lines when you're done. And I'll show you why as we go through this. I'm going to start this drawing in this corner right here. I'm just going to go over and use direct distance entry and polar tracking to draw the whole thing. I'm going to draw it as a polyline, and then I'm going to use the offset command. I'm going to move this off the screen right now and go to AutoCAD itself. So I'm going to use the P-line command. PL, by the way, is a plan command now. It used to be P-line, but P by itself is P-line. It used to be pan. Why they changed these things, I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me where I start this, so I can really just pick any point. But I'm just going to start it at 5 feet, 5 feet, just to have a known starting point. I'll go directly to the right, and I'm just following the dimensions on the handout tell me to go 17 feet. You need the foot mark when using architectural units. Just go, so I've got let's go down instead. I'm going to go down 3 feet 8 inches. From here I'm going to go over 6 feet 6 inches. From here I'm going to go up. I'm just going to hover over here and acquire that since I know it lines up. I'll go this way 10 feet 6 inches. Now I'm going to go straight up. I'm going to go straight up 26 feet 4 inches. I'm going to go back over. I know it's going to line up here. It's all straight lines, so I'm just going to acquire that point and do this. Now I'm going to go down 18 feet, and then I'm going to go out 16 inches. I can just type 16. It'll know that it's inches. I'll go down 5 feet. I'll go back in until it lines up here. I'll then close my P-line, so I have a closed P-line. The reason I wanted to do this is that now I can use the offset command. And I can use the offset command by saying offset 8 inches. Now when I pick this and offset it, I get much of what I need for the other line. I do need to make a few modifications here, and I'm going to do that right now. Now I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to hover off of this corner, go across and start it right here, and I'm going to come out. Actually, I have a little better idea. I'm going to start my line by hovering over this corner and going in this direction 3 feet 4 inches and then going back. And the reason I'm doing that is it allows me to use direct distance entry in order to get that in the right location. Now I can offset through. I'm doing that just to show you something. I'm going to offset this line through this point right here. Offset through. So here's my object to offset, and I want to offset it right through this point here so it goes down on the right point. I'll draw another line that goes from here to here, and I'm going to draw another line that goes, actually I'm going to just take this one since it's exploded, and I'm going to extend it out to here. I'm going to take this line and extend it out to here, and now I can use the trim command, or I can grab that line and just bring it back to there. As long as you've got running object snaps on, this all works just fine, but trim would have worked as well. So I'm going to grab that and bring it down here. Now we do need one more thing, and I'm going to offset one more time 8 inches. Bring this in here, and now I will use the trim command. Oh, no, even better, the fillet command. Holding the shift key down, I'll pick those 2 points, go back into fillet, pick those 2 points. Now I've got that laid out. I'll come back over here and do the same thing. I come over here and do the same thing. I'm going to start a line by hovering here, go in that direction 5 feet 8 inches. I'll go over and line it right up here, come back down to here, and now I'll get rid of that because I can. No, I can't. So I'm going to oops this back. Now I'll do another line from here to here, and I'll leave that in place as well. Now, move this back here, move this back here, and now I'll use the p-edit command to put this whole thing together, and we'll join. I could have used the join command for this too, by the way. Then I wouldn't have had to go through all this, and then I'm going to combine it with all these other lines. Now I'm going to offset that 8 because that's the size of the width of the wall. Offset 8. Pick this up, bring it down here like that. So now what I've got is almost everything. I'm going to come back up here and do that little piece right there as well. The easiest way for me to do that, I think, is to start here, go up 13 feet, and then bring that line all the way across. Now that goes down through the center of that. Then I can offset 8, bring it up 8, bring it down 8. And what that's going to do is give me the width of that little pilaster that comes out here. Come over here and come out. How far out does that come? 8. So I'm going to draw a line from this intersection coming out here, 8 units. From here I'm going to go down to there. That takes care of that one for me. I'll do the same thing over here. Draw a line starting here, comes out 8. From here I'm going to go down to that point. Now I'll do a little trimming. First I'll trim and just press enter and get rid of all that stuff. Then I'm going to trim, do it again. I'll get rid of these things, get rid of those. Take that and delete it. Come back over here, do the same thing. Now that gives me everything I need as far as the outside goes. But what I really want is for everything to be connected as one P line. So I'll use the join command this time. What I'm going to do is to join everything in that window together. And what just happened is I've created a single P line out of that entire thing. Now that's a single P line, that's a single P line, that's a single P line, and that's a single P line. Everything here is now a closed P line. Now the reason I did that is I want to go and place the footing line, which is going to be a hidden line. I want to place that out here. And in order to do that, a couple things I can do. First, I can go to the hidden layer. Now I'm going to offset 4. But before I do that, I'm going to tap L for layer and say I want to offset to the current layer. Now I'm going to go 4, and now when I offset this line up and this line down, I've got my hidden line set up. Then I've got one more here. And by offsetting to the current layer, it puts it on that layer. Now the question is, why is it that I can't see in a hidden line type, since I did assign a hidden line type to that? And I did assign a hidden line type, so why is it not hidden? By the way, did I do something else? Yeah, I also have a hidden line type for dimensions, so I'm going to change that to continuous while I'm right here. The problem is, line type is really tiny. If I come in here like this and take a look, you can see that it's broken down into a hidden line. Those segments are really short though. And what I want to do is I want to set a scale for plotting that allow me to have that show up. Because if I would go to layout right now, notice how the hidden line type is showing now. Go back out to model space. If you want to see this in model space, what you have to do is set the scale in model space to something that we plan to plot with. So if we're going to plot this at 1/4 of an inch equals a foot, we can set that to 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. Make sure that MSLT scale is turned on, which it is. Now that should have regenerated this and shown it as a larger line type. Find out why it didn't. I'm going to pick this, right click, go to properties. Line type generation is disabled. We want to enable it. Why it was disabled, I don't know. Properties. This is not the behavior that we would have seen in earlier releases of AutoCAD. I'm going to go and disable that now because I don't really want that enabled, and now that fixes this and that fixes that. Alright, I will officially declare this a glitch in AutoCAD 2020. That should have automatically changed, and normally it would have. And in fact, here's another line. You can see that that is still too small, and so that should also be displaying. So my guess is if we go and say enable, it'll come back, and then if we disable again, it'll be what it's supposed to be. That should have been automatic. That's one of those things that'll get corrected at some point in 2020 when they do a service pack, I hope. And while we're here, I'm just going to check something. I'm going to draw a line and see if when there's already a plot scale set, if there's already a plot scale set, that would have come in correctly. So something up with the new version of 2020. But that's how I want you to approach this drawing. Now just a couple things about dimensioning. I'm going to dimension this in model space, which I can do as long as I've set a scale. And what I want to do is to identify the scale I plan to plot at. Before doing that, you really should go to a layout, set up a sheet size, and find out what scale you do plan to plot it at. You can do that. In this case, I'm going to choose 1/4 inch equals a foot and assume that that's going to be right, and I'll change it later if I don't like that. I'm going to leave the layer set to foundation hid. I'm going to go to Annotate. One of the things you can do under the dimension pane is instead of saying use the current layer, you can select a layer to use anytime you place a dimension. So now if I come down here and go to dimension, the drawing that I just created, I'll put a linear dimension on this. If I go from here to here, pull a dimension over here, that would have worked had I actually selected architectural for my dimension style, which I did not. So my dimension style is architectural. It's also indicating that dimensions should all go on the foundation dimension layer. So now I'll go to dimension this from here to here, and I bring it out here, places it. 26 feet 4 inches is the correct dimension. It automatically places it on the dimension layer and not on the current layer. One other thing I want to show you is a situation that occurs right down here. What I want to do right there is I want you to put a linear dimension on that, indicating the size from here to here, but I do not want that dimension in feet and inches. I want it to say 16 inches. That's what the drawing says. I don't want you to explode it or overwrite it ever. Dimensions should never be overridden. So what I'm going to do instead is to pick that dimension, go to Properties, and in Properties I'm going to change a couple things about it. And what I want to change about it is under Primary Units. I want to switch from architectural to decimal. I certainly don't want that many decimal places, so I'm also going to go back to Properties and change the precision. So the precision is now set to 0. Now you notice it gives me 16, but I can also indicate that I want to put the inch mark on there by adding a dimension suffix. And the suffix is going to look like that. I come back out, and now it says 16 inches, which is what I want it to say. This video is 25 minutes long, and I think that's enough to review the things I'm going to cover in class. I'm going to expect you to go to a layout and set up a layout that's properly set up with a title block, and the scales have to be done correctly, and I'll review that in class as well.